My wife secretly married her boss, forged documents to claim our $250, $0 house, and now he's suing us for half. I found out after she admitted she's been cheating and manipulating us for years. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing out a story about how I found out my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me with her boss, Mark. Honestly, I didn't even suspect anything at first. Things seemed normal, well, as normal as a marriage can be when you're working your ass off trying to make a life. We had the house, a decent life, and I thought Lisa was happy. But then little things started to change. She became more distant, secretive even. She'd hide her phone, change her passwords, and get defensive when I asked about her day. Small stuff, but enough to make me uneasy. One day, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe cook dinner, just spend some time together. When I walked in, I immediately sensed something was off. The house was eerily quiet and her phone was on the kitchen counter, face down. I saw it and thought, okay, maybe. She's just busy. But then I noticed a receipt sticking out of her purse. It was from a fancy restaurant downtown, one I knew she'd never suggested going to alone. I looked closer and saw the name Mark Steakhouse on it. My stomach sank. I wasn't sure what I was looking at, but I felt a cold wave rush through me. I decided to check her phone while she was in the shower. I know that sounds invasive, but I was desperate. I unlocked it easily. She'd never bothered to change her password. I scrolled through her messages, and what I saw made my blood run cold. There were texts between her and Mark talking about meeting up, finishing what they started, and explicit messages about sex. She'd been lying to my face for months, pretending she was working late or out with friends. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with her boss, planning secret rendezvous and probably more. My mind was racing. How could she do this? I had trusted her with everything. We built this life together. And now I was reading messages that confirmed she'd been manipulating me, lying to my face, and cheating on me with someone I thought was a decent guy. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I didn't even know how to process it. I had to sit down. My hands trembled as I kept scrolling through the messages, trying to understand how long this had been going on, how deep it was. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It had been going on for years, I realized. She'd even forged documents to claim our house, a house we worked so hard for, to her boss. That's when I saw the real damage. She was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate everything to keep this affair going. I knew I had to confront her, but I also knew I needed to be strategic. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her without evidence. Still, I couldn't hold back the anger and hurt. I waited until she got out of the shower, then called her into the living room. Her face was calm, almost smug, like she knew she'd get away with her lies. She looked at me and I could see a flicker of something, nervousness, guilt. No, it was more like she thought she was smarter than me. I didn't say much. At first, I just threw the phone on the coffee table and told her I knew everything. Her face twisted into a sneer as she started to deny everything, spinning some story about how I was imagining things, that she loved me, that Mark was just a friend, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. The damage was done. The trust was shattered. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I looked at her and all I could think about was how much I'd given her. My time, my love, my effort. And she'd thrown it all away for some guy who clearly didn't care about her or us. The worst part was that she kept lying, trying to gaslight me, telling me I was crazy or jealous or that I didn't understand her. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she be so bitchy, so manipulative? I never thought I'd end up in a situation where I'd have to question everything. Our marriage, her loyalty, her very integrity. But here I was, staring at the woman I thought I knew, realizing she'd been playing me for years. And the worst part, I had no idea how to fix this or if I even wanted to. All I knew was that my world was crumbling and I was just trying to hold on. After I confronted Lisa that night, everything changed in an instant. She sat there, eyes wide with that fake innocent look she always wore when she knew she was lying, trying to convince me she was the victim. She kept insisting she was just talking to Mark, that it was nothing serious, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. Yeah, right. The way she spun her stories, I could tell she was used to twisting facts, manipulating situations, and making herself seem innocent even when she was caught dead to rights. That was her game. Lie, deny, manipulate, and hope I'd just forget about it and move on. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I told her I wanted her to leave the house. She acted like I was overreacting, like I was some jealous psycho. She threw a fit, started crying, calling me crazy, saying I was paranoid, that she loved me and only me, but I knew better. I'd seen the messages, the receipts, everything. I told her I needed some time to think, to process what I'd found out. She looked at me like I was the one in the wrong. That bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was winning, that's what made me furious. Over the next few days, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, her cheating, her forging documents to claim our house. I still couldn't believe she'd done all that, especially after all the years we'd been together. I started digging into her financials just to see what else she'd been hiding. That's when I found out she'd been secretly married to Mark for months. She'd forged documents, lied about her identity, and even filed paperwork claiming our house, our biggest investment, was hers and Mark's. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. She'd been manipulating everything, lying about her job, her life, and even about us. I started seeing the full picture of her betrayal. It wasn't just about the affair, it was about control, money, power. She'd been using me, using our house, our money, to keep her affair hidden. I found bank statements showing she'd been funneling money into an account under Mark's name, probably to hide the payments. She'd even taken out a loan against the house, claiming she needed it for remodeling, but I later found out she used that money to pay Mark off for some other scheme, I guess. I felt sick. How could she be so calculated, so cold? She'd lied to me about everything, our marriage, our finances, her very identity. I knew I had to do something. I wasn't just going to sit around and be played like a fool. I started planning my revenge, not just to hurt her, but to make her realize she couldn't get away with this. I wanted her to feel the pain, the betrayal that I was feeling 10 times worse. I decided I'd take back what was mine, our house, our life, everything she tried to steal from me. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of messages, bank statements, forged documents. I contacted a lawyer, and that's when I learned she was planning to sue us for half the house, claiming she had rights to it because she'd forged her name on everything. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. I realized she'd been lying to me for years about her job, her fidelity, her plans. She'd spun this web of lies so tangled I didn't even recognize her anymore. But I also knew I couldn't just react on impulse. I had to be smart. I decided I'd fight her, show her I wasn't some naive fool she could manipulate anymore. I wanted her to pay for what she'd done, her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I felt a strange mix of sadness and rage. I loved her once, but now I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, bitchy woman who'd played me for a fool. I'm still trying to figure out what's next. Do I fight her in court? Do I walk away and start over? Honestly, I don't even know if I want to stay married anymore. All I know is I'm not going down without a fight. I've lost a lot: trust, respect, my peace of mind. But I refuse to let her ruin me completely. I'll do whatever it takes to get my life back, even if it means tearing her world apart. Because at the end of the day, I learned that some people, especially the ones you trust the most, can turn out to be the biggest liars and manipulators. And I'm damn sure not going to be the one left holding the broken pieces. After I started assembling all the evidence, I realized just how deep Lisa's lies went. It wasn't just the affair, it was the entire life she'd been building on deception. The forged documents claiming our house, the secret marriage to Mark, the financial schemes, every piece fit together like a twisted puzzle I never wanted to see. I felt sick every time I thought about how she'd manipulated me, how she'd lied to my face about her career, about her friendship with Mark, about everything. It was like waking up from a nightmare where the person you trusted most turns out to be the biggest con artist. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out on the table. I called her, told her I'd found everything and that I wanted her to come over so we could talk. She showed up, trying to act calm, cool, and collected, like she still had control. but I saw through her act. Her eyes flickered with panic when I laid out the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, forged documents. I told her I knew she'd been married to Mark, that she'd forged our house papers, and that she'd been lying to me for years. Her reaction was a classic Lisa move. She started crying, saying I was crazy, that I was reading too much into things, and that Mark was just a business associate, not her husband. She claimed everything was a misunderstanding, that she loved me, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure. That bitchy tone she had when she thought she was winning made my blood boil. I told her I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her she'd crossed the line and that I was done being played. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I told her she had to leave the house. She argued, said she'd explain everything, but I cut her off. I told her I was filing for divorce, and I was going to fight her for everything she'd taken. Our house, the money she'd stolen, her lies. I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose control, to see her plans unravel. I knew I had to be strategic. I contacted a lawyer the next day, and we started preparing for the legal battle ahead. I also hired a private investigator to dig into Mark's background. I needed to know how deep this whole mess went. In the meantime, I started looking into the legal side of things. Turns out, Lisa had forged my signature on some documents, including the house papers, which made everything complicated. I learned she'd been planning to claim half the house, which she had no right to do, especially since she'd forged her way into ownership. I also found out she opened a bunch of secret bank accounts under fake names, accounts I never knew about, and transferred money there. She'd been funneling cash to Mark's accounts, probably trying to hide the affair's financial side. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd always thought we had a good marriage, that we were in this together. But now I saw her for what she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted. It was hard to accept that I'd been so blind for so long. Some nights I'd lie awake questioning everything. How could I have missed all this? Was I just too trusting? Did I ignore the signs? The worst part was feeling so betrayed, so stupid for not seeing it earlier. But I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to fight for what was rightfully mine. I started planning my next moves carefully. I wanted to expose her lies publicly, but I also knew I had to keep things discreet for now. I couldn't afford to let her spin her stories or manipulate the court. I gathered all the evidence I could, screenshots, bank statements, forged signatures, and I kept them safe. I also reached out to some friends and family for support, though I didn't tell many details. I didn't want to broadcast my pain, but I needed allies. I knew this wasn't just about money or the house. It was about respect, trust, and my dignity. I had to come out of this stronger, even if it meant tearing her entire world apart. And so, I waited. I knew the legal battles would take months, maybe longer. But I also knew that Lisa's manipulations were coming to an end. I'd be damned if I let her walk away with everything she'd stolen. I was ready to fight for my rights, for my sanity, and for the truth. Whatever happened next, I promised myself I wouldn't be a victim anymore. I'd take control of my life again, no matter how messy or painful it got. Because at the end of the day, I learned that some betrayals cut so deep, they change everything. About yourself, about love, about trust. And I was determined not to let her win. The legal process moved faster than I expected, probably because I was relentless about pushing forward. I spent every free minute poring over documents, talking to my lawyer, and planning my next moves. Lisa's attempts to deny everything only made me more certain she was trying to drag this out, to buy herself more time or maybe hope I'd just give up. But I wasn't about to let her get away with it. The truth was out, and I had the evidence to back it up. One day, I found out she'd been trying to get her hands on the house through legal tricks, signatures, fake affidavits, even claims that she'd contributed financially when she hadn't. But that was all going to blow up in her face. My lawyer laid out a solid case: the forged documents, the secret marriage, the financial schemes, everything. We filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her accounts and prevent her from selling or transferring the house. That was a huge step. It felt good knowing she couldn't just run away with what she thought she could steal. Meanwhile, I kept digging into Mark's background, trying to understand what kind of guy I was dealing with. Turns out, Mark wasn't just some successful boss. He was a slick operator, involved in shady deals and shady relationships. I hired a private investigator, and what I found was even more infuriating. Mark had a history of using women, manipulating them for money and power. The guy had a reputation for being ruthless, and I was starting to see why Lisa was so drawn to him. She'd always wanted to be with someone who could give her a bigger life, and she saw Mark as her ticket out. That realization made my blood boil even more. I also started talking to some of Lisa's friends, anyone who might have insight. What I heard confirmed my suspicions. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. She'd been secretly meeting Mark, forging documents, and even making plans to move out and start a new life with him. She'd convinced herself she could manipulate everyone, including me, into thinking everything was fine. But I wasn't buying her lies anymore. I saw through her, and I was ready to expose her to everyone. The emotional toll was intense. There were days I felt numb, days I wanted to break down and scream. I kept asking myself how I'd been so blind for so long, how I'd missed all the signs, ignored the little things that now seemed so obvious. I was angry at her, sure, but mostly I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly. It's a strange feeling, knowing someone you loved could be capable of such betrayal. But I couldn't dwell on that too long. I had to stay focused. I had to win this fight, not just for the house or the money, but for my own sense of justice. One thing became clear. Lisa's bitchiness and manipulative ways weren't just about her cheating. They were about control. She'd always been good at twisting situations, lying her way out of trouble, and convincing people she was the victim. Now I saw right through her. She thought she could outsmart everyone, but her lies were unraveling fast. My lawyer warned me she might try to spin stories or make false accusations, but I was prepared. I had everything documented, everything ready to go. In the meantime, I started planning how I'd handle the aftermath. I knew I'd have to face her in court, and I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. I also knew that this wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I wanted her to realize she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. I was determined to make her pay for the years of lies, betrayal, and manipulation. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for my sanity, my respect, and my life. Every day, I woke up with a new resolve. I'd come this far, and I wasn't about to back down now. I'd expose her, take back what was mine, and rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. I knew she was probably planning her next move, maybe trying to lawyer up or spin her own story, but I was ready for whatever she threw at me. The truth was on my side, and I intended to see this through to the end. This was her game, and I was playing to win. The court date finally arrived, and I felt a mixture of relief and dread. I knew Lisa was going to pull out all the stops. She had to, if she wanted to keep her lies intact. I sat in the courtroom, my stomach clenched tight, watching her sit across from me with that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was winning. Mark was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he was probably lurking behind the scenes, pulling strings or trying to influence the outcome. I had my lawyer by my side, and I had everything laid out: screenshots, forged documents, bank statements, everything that proved her betrayal and her illegal schemes. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that she had contributed financially to the house, that she should get half of it, and that her marriage to Mark was just a business arrangement she was trying to keep secret. She even claimed that I was abusive, that I had been controlling, and that she had no choice but to run to Mark for help. That was classic Lisa, lying, twisting facts, playing the victim, but her lies didn't hold up. The evidence was too strong, and my lawyer was relentless. He pointed out every forgery, every illegal transfer, every lie she'd told. Then I took the stand. I told the court everything: the truth about her affair, her forged documents, her secret marriage, her financial manipulations. I explained how she'd been lying to me for years, how she'd manipulated our life to suit her needs. I saw her try to interrupt, tried to spin her stories, but I kept going. I told them about the house, how she'd forged my signature to claim it, how she'd been funneling money to Mark, and how she'd been planning to leave me with nothing. The courtroom was silent except for her lawyer trying to object, but I held firm. I wanted the truth to come out loud and clear. When I finished, the judge looked over the evidence, then turned to Lisa. Her face was flushed, her eyes darting around, trying to find a way out. The judge's decision was swift. He ruled that the forged documents were invalid, that Lisa had no legal claim to the house, and that she was to pay back all the money she had illegally transferred. He also ordered her to pay court costs and damages for the emotional distress she caused. The courtroom erupted into whispers, and I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. I'd fought hard, and finally, the truth was out. But even as the court ruled in my favor, I knew this wasn't the end. Lisa was already planning her next move, probably trying to spin her own version of events to her friends and family. I could see her bitchy smirk returning as she left the courtroom, like she still thought she'd won somehow. But I didn't care. I'd already won in my mind justice, truth, and the chance to finally move on. In the days that followed, I started the process of rebuilding my life. The house was legally mine again, free of her lies and manipulations. I blocked her from all my social media, cut ties with her family who still believed her version of events, and focused on healing. It hurt badly, but I knew I had to move forward. I got a new job, started therapy, and worked on letting go of the anger and betrayal. I also kept a close eye on her, just in case she tried to come back or pull some last-minute stunt. Looking back, I realize how much I learned from all this. Trust is fragile, and some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate just to get what they want. Lisa was one of those people. I also learned that sometimes you've got to fight dirty, fight smart, and never let the other person see you break. Because when everything's on the line, your home, your dignity, your peace of mind, you have to stand tall and fight for what's right. I'm still healing, still putting the pieces of my life back together, but I know now that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. And I'll never let someone like Lisa manipulate me again. After everything was said and done, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with a deep, lingering emptiness. The court case was over, Lisa's manipulations exposed, and I finally had my house back, legally, morally, and emotionally. But the scars ran deeper than I expected, and I knew I'd carry this betrayal with me for a long time. Still, I was glad I fought. I fought for my dignity, my sanity, and my future. I learned a lot through this mess, about trust, about people, and about myself. Living alone now isn't easy, but it's freeing. I don't have to hide my feelings or second-guess every word I say. I don't have to wonder if the person I loved was secretly planning my downfall. I've realized that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from the people closest to us, and the only way to survive them is to face the truth head-on. I wish I could say I've completely moved on, but I haven't. There are days when I feel angry, days when I feel broken, but more often I feel stronger. I feel like I've reclaimed a part of myself that I thought was lost forever. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the little signs, and don't let anyone manipulate you into thinking you're overreacting. If something feels off, dig deeper, because sometimes the truth is uglier than you want to admit, but facing it is the only way to truly move forward. I also learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone just to get even. It's about reclaiming what's yours, standing up for yourself, and making sure that the person who betrayed you understands they can't get away with it. I didn't do this for her to suffer, though she certainly did, but for me to find peace again. I've come to accept that some people are just bad and you can't change that. The only thing you can do is protect yourself and make sure they don't take you down with them. Looking back, I realize how much I took for granted: trust, honesty, stability. Now I understand that those things are fragile and worth fighting for. I've learned to value myself more, set boundaries, and never let anyone manipulate me into believing I'm the problem when I'm just being honest. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I'll face it with my head held high. No more lies, no more betrayal. Just me, rebuilding my life one step at a time. And if there's one last thing I'd say to anyone going through something similar, it's this: never doubt your worth, trust yourself, fight for what's right, And never let anyone make you feel small because of their lies. You're stronger than you think, and you deserve a life built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. I may have lost a lot, but I gained something much more valuable, myself.